Hi everyone, Dennis Foley from Acoustic Fields. I've been building buildings for 35 years, probably built 5-6 million square feet of buildings and rooms. So I have a lot of familiarity with structures, and over an 8-year period I was given a sizable sum of money and a crew of 8, and I was told build quiet rooms, build rooms that have high speech intelligibility, and then towards the end, I was told, let's get them sounding good for music. And that's been the impetus for all the technologies that you see here through Acoustic Fields. So I have a lot of experience actually building and testing rooms. And then we built 116 rooms just for audio, and we tested those. And we have a huge database of all this information. So we can give you a pretty good idea of where your room fits into that database. So today we're going to talk about top mixing and mastering acoustic setup mistakes. So let's get some definitions on what an ideal situation is and work from that point forward, and I think we'll get some handles on the idea. Also, at the end of this section, I'm going to give you a tip for room width, height, and length that you can use in your real estate lookings for property and also in your design of studios. So let's look at room dimensions and volume, because that's the first thing we need to work with. We need to have the proper dimensions and the proper volume. We know from our laws of physics that a 30 hertz wave is about 37 foot long, and if we're going to have that 37 foot wave fit, we need at least 40 feet in length, width, and height if it was an ideal situation. Well, who's so fortunate to have a room of those dimensions? None of us. So we're always in small rooms, and we're always compromising, and that's a little bit expensive. And we know that real estate's expensive, so we have to get some kind of balance between those two issues. We have to realize that the energy in our room is two parts: low frequency pressure management and reflection. So low frequency pressure is always the first thing that we must address, because if we don't get the low end right, we can't get the mids and highs right, because the mids and highs sit on the low end. So we have to make sure that our pressure is distributed evenly throughout the room. And just like I learned here in this video setup, lighting has to be distributed evenly throughout the surface that you're lighting. And what a pain that is. So anyway, the bottom line here is we need to distribute the energy throughout the room, not just in the corners. People say, well, put this or that in the corners of the room. But if you think about it, a rectangular room really has 16 corners. You think, well, now think about that. So every intersection between floor and sidewall is a corner. Every intersection between sidewall and floor is a corner. If you add them all up in a rectangular room, you really have 16 corners in your room, not just 4. So we have all these pressure intersections, if you will, that have to be treated. To start the process and to make it better for all of us, we need to have width, length, and height dimensions that are close to the ideal room situation. Well, we're not going to get those dimensions. So what's the next ratio of dimensions that we can use? And that's the key: selecting the proper width, height, and length ratio that minimizes pressure and reflection issues. Because that's always what it is, pressure and reflection. Now, what is a good dimension? Well, let's talk about that in our graphic summary here. In graphic 1, you see that 40 by 40 by 40 is an ideal room situation. Graphic 2, you see that the pressure from low frequency energy is distributed everywhere in the room. It can be high, it can be low, it can be middle throughout the room. Graphic 3 shows the pressure distribution of that energy within the room. And you can see it's strongest at the room boundary surfaces and works its way less towards the center of the room. But we also have pressure in the center of the room. Graphic 4 shows the pressure treatment areas that we need to address along the room boundary surfaces, not just the corners. So we have to be aware of that. All right, here's the ideal room situation in graphic 5 that you should look for when you're looking for your real estate. 17 wide, 10 foot high, 23 foot long. Any room above that will have less low frequency management issues. Any room below that will have more. So this is a good starting point for you. So when you're out there looking for how much space do I need for a studio, use this 17, 10, 23 as a guideline.